Fed judge rejects Uhuru 3 motion to dismiss trial date expected to be set in February. January 26, 2024, U.S. Magistrate Judge Anthony Porcelli in the Federal District Court of Tampa, Florida, filed on other recommendations that District Judge William Jung denied the Uhuru 3 motion for dismissal of the bogus charges against Uhuru Movement founder and Black liberation leader Chairman Yeshitela, along with Penny Hess, Jesse Nevel, two white solidarity organizers with the Uhuru Movement. Last year, the federal government indicted Uhuru 3 on absurd charges that Chairman Omali and the Uhuru Movement's 50-year struggle for Black freedom suddenly became a Russian-led conspiracy. The indictment came 9 months after the violent military-style multi-city FBI raids on 7 homes and offices of the Uhuru Movement in July 2020. The Uhuru 3 attorneys motioned for dismissal called for the baseless charges to be dismissed on the grounds that they violated First Amendment rights of freedom of speech. The case is expected to go to trial later this year. Dates for the trial are expected to be set at a status hearing in February. The U.S. government has put us in the position of having to fight for free speech that they claim is the cornerstone of U.S. democracy, says Chairman Omali. The Uhuru 3.
Blank period, yeah. On my black, brown, and indigenous. Gotta holler if you really feeling this. Gotta holler if you really real enough. Other rappers is delirious. Yeah, it's really that serious. Better holler if you really feeling me. I gotta keep it 100, ayy. If you don't like it, then fuck it, ayy. We gonna win in the end, yeah, we gonna live in abundance. I gotta keep it 100, ayy. If you don't like it, then fuck it, ayy. We gonna win in the end, yeah, we gonna. I gotta keep it 100. We gotta stop all the stunting. You know we coming from nothing. Yo, you talking about money, you bluffing. We gotta do something different. We gotta change how we live in. We gotta do better for women. We gotta do better for children. We gotta listen to victims, whether Jewish or Muslim or Christian. It doesn't matter your religion. You gotta stand against the system, or else you just another villain. How you just sitting there chilling?
Peace, everyone. Peace, everybody out there in the airwaves, on Spotify, on wherever you get your podcast. My name is Jamar Jabari, and we are back here with another very important special episode. I have here in front of me, you may know this man for over 50 years, fighting for reparations, a Pan-Africanist, a socialist that has been a huge pillar for the working class. I am very honored to have Chairman Omali here on my show. Pleased to meet you, Chairman Omali. Uhuru.
Uhuru. So good to see you, Comrade Jabari. And we really appreciate having access to this platform. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for coming on. And I really appreciate talking with your one of your members, Alex Suarez, who is just an amazing comrade. I've learned so much just having him on the show twice. It actually just brings up more of me to learn more of the history of socialism, things I did not know, which is I can carry on in my progress to fighting for the true system that could help working class people.
The thing is, that's so important, is to be open and always open, and the thing is that we stop developing at the moment that we know everything, you know what I mean? Right. And so be open to development. That's a critical thing. And I think right now it's especially important because the whole economic and political configuration of the world is in a state of extraordinary transition, and it's shaking up everything. And many things that we thought we understood just a few months ago have come into question. We see history being condensed, and what took us, years to understand. Now we see that people are coming to grips with it in a matter of weeks and days. It's just an extraordinary moment to be alive, and it's an extraordinary moment to develop. So I'm really glad to hear you talking about just being open to development. That's a critical thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. We are. I try to keep my mind open 24/7 because I know that I have to center the voices of the oppressed, and then you will always continue to learn the more you center the voices of the oppressed.
Right on.
Yeah.
Right on.
Omali, you're here to talk about what you can talk about with the case with Uhuru 3. For people that don't know yet, and for people that are still learning, Omali and two other people, which is let me get the names here. I always
right. Yeah, it's Penny Hess.
Penny Hess, and
who is the chairwoman, who's the chair of the African People's Solidarity Committee, and Jesse Nevel, who is the chair of the Uhuru Solidarity Committee. And the three of us have been indicted. And this came some 9 months following a violent raid on our homes and properties, offices in St. Louis, Missouri, and St. Petersburg, Florida, using battering rams and armed thugs who carried assault weapons and used flashbang grenades, cordon off the communities, the African community where I live in St. Louis, and the African community in St. Petersburg, Florida, where I have a home because that's where I lived for a long period of time, and terrorized the entire community. So this happened. They stole all kinds of materials, cell phones, laptops, anything that had the capacity to communicate. They used battering rams and broke windows, broke doors down. They went into our financial records at our office in St. Petersburg, Florida. They took our radio station temporarily off the air. They raided our archives, where we have 50 years or so of history of our party, of the struggle in general. And we don't know exactly what they took from that. There's supposed to have been some receipt for what they took, but we'd have to take their word for that. And and we were handcuffed, and I was zip tied. My wife was handcuffed behind her back. Penny Hess and Jesse Nevel were handcuffed, and so was Jesse's partner and wife. So was Penny Hess' comrade, roommate, and who lives in the south side of St. Petersburg, handcuffed and held at gunpoint. And they searched our properties for hours, 6-8 hours. They occupied our properties and things like that. So, this is, and then they said they were doing it because later that morning, this was pre-dawn, this was 5 a.m. in the morning here in St. Louis, and then in St. Petersburg, which is a time zone difference of about an hour, it was 6 o'clock there. They were simultaneous raids, and they said they were doing it because later that morning there was to be an indictment served on a Russian national who was in Moscow, and they said that our name were in the indictment, and this was their method of serving a search warrant, and we asked to see the warrant, and that they conveniently didn't have on them, but it was,
Jesus.
And after hours, and they had left, we found a search warrant on a table in our house. But so this is what happened. It was a real terroristic kind of violent attack. When I came out of the house at their command, hands up, and walked out of my house at 5 o'clock in the morning. There's an armored vehicle in front of my house. There's these armed military forces with assault weapons and laser beams, targeting devices bouncing off my chest, the red dots on my chest. It was clear they were letting me know that if they wanted to, they could kill me. And I remembered Fred Hampton, who had been murdered by the FBI at 4 o'clock in the morning in West Monroe in Chicago, 1969. And I assumed that's what they were going to do, kill me. My wife came downstairs and opened the door. And she had stayed behind to try to call comrades to let them know we were being raided. And she couldn't reach anybody because they had jammed our phones. So we couldn't communicate with anybody. And when she opened the door, when she followed me out of the house, she was almost hit in the face by a drone that they had sent up the stairs at a house as well. So this was the nature of the attack that they said they were making to serve a search warrant. And not because of drugs, not because of any even accusation of violence or anything like that. They said it was a search warrant that our names came up dealing with the Russian national. That was in Moscow. That was in Russia.
Wow.
So that's sort of, a foundation for what we've been dealing with since July 29th, 2022.
Now, I've also heard that I saw on your Democracy Now! Interview that you have to check in wherever you go. That's a violation of your rights. How are they able? Are they also doing other things that are a blatant violation of your rights?
We had to turn in our passports. Any weapons in the house. My wife, who has not been charged with anything, had to turn in her weapons. Wow. Her materials were stolen, passports and things like that. Not passport, but laptops were stolen. They did about $40,000 worth of damage when you include the doors broken down, windows broken, the materials stolen, etc. So they took my passport, and then they didn't do this initially. Initially, we were characterized as unindicted co-conspirators, which is a very insidious thing that they did and that they can do. Because once we are characterized as unindicted co-conspirators, that means we don't have legal standing. That means we can't go into a court and say, hey, stop them from doing such and such a thing to us, because legally they haven't done anything yet. We're unindicted. So everybody in the world knows that they haven't published our names, but the newspapers are carrying the stories, and the FBI who came to my house made it very clear that this is going to be in the news, this is going to be big news, that kind of thing. So everybody knows it, but I can't defend myself in the court because I don't have legal standing. And I don't have legal standing because we haven't been charged with anything yet. So this is for 9 months. And then in April, I think it was the 28th, an indictment came down. I think it was April the 28th, something like that. An indictment came down, and we were charged with violating some law that I think it was called statute. It's a statute that criminalizes unregistered foreign agents. It's 18 USC 951. And this is the first time that this law has ever been used, even though it's always been political. A political law had to do, I think that initially the first utilization of this law was in something like 1917, something related to that. It had to do with sedition, stuff like that. It has to do with spies. And so it's never been used, however, just to deal with the issue of speech. This is the first time it's ever been used to deal with speech. Usually it had to do with some activity that somebody's involved in, but the actions that they accuse us of being involved in all revolve around speech. They said that they don't like what we said about the U.S. war, its position in Ukraine, that we came out clearly on the side of Russia, not because we are some forces, Russia files or something like that, because we know the history of that whole movement against Russia going back to 1917, 1918, when all of the colonial powers in the world, including Japan and the United States, invaded Russia because of this revolution that had happened in the wake of this turmoil, anti-colonial turmoil was happening all around the world, including in this country. And so Russia had to be stopped, and they invaded Russia. And since that time, the strategic objective of the United States has been, and all of what is characterized as the West, has been something that would neutralize or encircle Russia, or keep Russia from being an effective force in the world. And as you know, you're talking about NATO and Ukraine. NATO was created for the exact purpose of containing and crushing Russia. That's the basis of its existence. That's never been a secret, etc. So our position on this, we saw it as connected to the overall struggle of anti-colonial struggle that we were involved in, consciously a part of, and other peoples around the world. And so this thing about Ukraine was a vehicle to make war against Russia. They had been moving closer and closer to Russia's border for years, especially since 2014. But even before that, what they did with Afghanistan, when they attacked Afghanistan, initially that was to set up a base, push out progressive forces that was associated with Russia and Afghanistan, and then to move closer to the Russian border. And that was the objective they had then. And so we recognize that, and we can say that. We thought we could say that. So that was our position then. And so they said that because we said that, and because this is a position that favors Russia, and because that's the position of Russia, it means that we're working for Russia. Which is an extraordinary kind of accusation. And
that is very crazy how they rationalize that. It's insane. That makes total no sense. You could say that you're like what you just said, that your line is that Russia has been a force towards anti-colonialism.
Yes.
But that doesn't mean you work for Russia. That means that you're defending the fact that it's an anti-colonial aspect of the war that you're defending. You're not defending, you're not working for Russia. You're not getting paid. You're giving your freedom of speech as an American.
Well, what you said was that over a period of, I think they said 6 years, that we received $7,000 from a non-governmental organization in Russia over a period of 6 years. Now, that's extraordinary because we raised $10,000 just in a matter of a few hours, I think last weekend, just in terms of defending ourselves in this case. So they say over a period of 6 years, we received, they said, I think $7,000 from this non-governmental organization in Russia. They also said that because we promoted this struggle against genocide, we did a tour against genocide. They said the Russians paid us to do this tour. It was the United Nations were in this country, an organization of the United Nations, and they were touring the United Nations and United States for the purpose of collecting testimony and evidence to looking at the treatment of Black people in this country. And so we went everywhere they went. We were there. And so they said the Russians paid us to do that. And this was part of what they said. We were sowing discord for Russia. That was the basis of what it is that we were doing. But the fact is, discord is already here. We don't have to sow discord. I mean, that wouldn't even be an NAACP if there were not discord. You know, the point is discord is something that's real in this country. And in 1982, November 1982, we held the first tribunal on reparations for African people in the United States in Brooklyn, New York. And we used international law as the basis for that. And one aspect of that law was the United Nations Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of Genocide that happened in 1948. So this was just a ridiculous claim. And as one comrade said in an event that we attended yesterday, the person who they claim was leading us in this process and turning us into people fighting against genocide, etc., was born in 1989. We did this convention, this tribunal in 1982. So this guy would have had to been a time traveler, as he put it, in order to have been responsible for our position on this. So this is, and then they said we ran candidates for the first time in the history of this country. We put reparations on the ballot. We ran candidates in St. Petersburg, Florida, in 2017, 2019, and genocide and reparations were part of what on those platforms. They said the Russians paid for us to do this. So this was the extraordinary thing that they've done, and they do this in part to negate the U.S. history of oppression of African people. So that if we complain about what's happening to us, there's no real history there, or if there is history there, you can negate it. You don't have to talk about it because we're saying it because Russians, a foreign power, told us to do this. And I can't remember a time in the history, certainly in this country, where African people were not oppressed, where genocide was not something that we've stared in the face day to day, not just Africans, the indigenous population, and all of that. The foundation of this country is on what they've done to the indigenous people and what they've done to African people, the twin pillars of the development of capitalism, if you will, in this country was the colonial domination of Africans, theft of the indigenous land, and theft of African labor. That's where the whole, as capitalism materialized and manifested itself in this country, it was on those twin pillars of what's done to the indigenous and Africans. And this was the reason why, even after 1948 passage by the United Nations of this convention on the prevention and punishment of genocide, which 4 years later, you had Paul Robeson, you had other people who were going to the United States demanding to the United Nations, demanding that the United States be called on this question. It took 40 years before the United States even ratified that. And even then it ratified it with the caveat that the United States could never be charged with genocide unless it agreed to it. And they were concerned about the indigenous people, African people, and people of Vietnam, ultimately later on taking them before the World Court for this question. So this is the conundrum that they are faced with. That's not our problem. That's their problem.
Absolutely.
History,
Absolutely. And it's completely racist because this is what they did with the Black Lives Matter group. Who were Marxists that started the Black Lives Matter, for people to remember that it was Marxist people that started Black Lives Matter. And they said that you guys are being told what to do by Russia, as if like it's so blatantly racist how they still to this day think that we can't think for ourselves.
Well, even before the birth of Marx, I mean, Nat Turner and Denmark Vesey and African people here and around the world, before there was a Marx, Black people have been fighting for our freedom. As long as there's been an America, as long as there's even Europe itself has its foundation in the emergence of a colonial mode of production. And Marx characterized himself as a primitive accumulation of capital that including turning Africa into a warren for the commercial hunting of black skins. It included in turn indigenous people in this land into the mines, bringing up gold and silver, and what they did to East India, or what we now recognize as India. All of this was the founding accumulation of capital that gave rise to capitalism. Jesus didn't bring it here. It was brought here as colonialism, and what Marx characterized as the primitive accumulation of capital, we said that in fact was the colonial mode of production. Europe left Europe before there was a Europe. When Portugal first attacked Africa 600 years ago and initiated this process of slavery and scattering in black people against our will all around the world, creating colonial, even if you look at what is now characterized as Latin America, all of that's been defined by the capture and dispersal of African people against our will at gunpoint. And here in this country, that's how the whole system got built. And this is the problem. If I may ask, here's the problem that they have. The problem that they have is that when you look at European history, what we call European history now, modernity is something that was achieved with the overturning feudalism in Europe, the feudal mode of production. But the feudal mode of production was overturned by what? It was overturned by what Marx characterized as a primitive accumulation of capital that brought capitalism into existence and the rise of the bourgeoisie and what have you. Yes. The bourgeoisie, this is what has been characterized as the bourgeois democratic revolution that encapsulated Europe and what became this country that we are in now, North America. So this democracy that they achieved, the reason that Marxists and others have been able to characterize it as progressive and say that the bourgeoisie was revolutionary, because it was revolutionary as it related to overturning feudalism in Europe.
Yes.
So feudalism in Europe got overturned as a consequence of the attack on Africa, the attack on the Americas, the enslavement of African people. That's the thing that changed the world and brought all the resources into Europe and a whole new social force that's known as the capitalist class. The bourgeoisie was born from that process. So when they talk about free speech, they were free speech for them in the struggle against feudalism. But they took away our free speech as the part of that process. And they took away our rights as a part of that process. So that's something that I think is really important for us to understand. The rise of this progressive thing, the revolutionary bourgeoisie was revolutionary as it related to dealing with the contradictions that came to be known as Europe. But they were extraordinary reactionary as it came to what they did to Africa, Asia, and what we now refer to as the Americas, the indigenous people. How can you call it progressive when, right now we are experiencing the consequences of concentration camps, euphemistically referred to as Indian reservations? You're talking about Gaza? There are Gazas all around this country. And of course, we live in concentration camps. They call housing projects in the prisons, the largest prison population in the world, right here. And guess who are the most folk in those prisons are Africans, indigenous people, etc., because that's the colonial contradiction that we're looking at. And that's what we're having to deal with right now. So I know I talked a lot, but I wanted to. I think it's really important.
That was amazing. I agree with you on that. That's so important to say. Because it's really, it really is giving a breakdown of how we are here and why the Uhuru 3, why you guys are dealing with what you're dealing with today.
Yes.
And what happened, it was the end of January, right? Where Judge Jung, if I'm saying this name correctly, dismissed, not dismissing your charges. Did Jung give a reason why? Was there a statement or anything why of this bogusness was not dismissed? It makes no
here's
sense.
the thing, that because our lawyer, we have brilliant lawyers. There are about 5 lawyers collectively working on this case.
Mm-hmm.
And so we made a motion to dismiss, saying that and went through the whole history of what the party has been about, how we fought against colonialism forever. We've been doing this for more than 50 years. And I've traveled all around the world. Russia, I went to Moscow, but I've been to Ireland during the time the Irish people were fighting against British colonialism. I was there, and they united with us in terms of struggle against colonialism and the struggle to make the United States ratify the Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of Crime of Genocide. I was in Nicaragua shortly after the revolution there, and so if they wanted to, and they could do this to you too. Anywhere you go, if you got a position that aligns with the position of somebody who they've decided is the enemy at that given moment, they can say that you are employed by them. So this is a part of like that trajectory. So our lawyer put forth a brilliant motion to dismiss the charges. And what was extraordinary about it, when this motion was put forward, they even allowed for us to come in and make oral arguments, which was a little unusual given the case. And so we went in, the lawyers made the oral arguments, and then the judge said, well, he was going to, come get back with us on this case. It took 4 months, 4 months before, even with Trump, they did it in a month. When he called for dismissal of charges, they came 4 months. Wow. And so that was, that's how long it took. And so the judge said that, he agreed with the prosecutor that what was characterized as free speech was actually actions. That what were the actions? The actions were we got petitions. That was an action. The action was that, and what were the petitions was the expression of speech. They said the action was that I travel different places or But what did we travel for? To speak. They came up with this kind of ridiculous intellectual gymnastic that doesn't make any kind of sense at all. It comes back to the question of the right to speech, and the problem is that free speech was something that was won by Europe in the struggle against feudalism. This is one of the things that made it possibly characterized as progressive, because under European feudalism, there was the divine right of kings. God told the king told everybody else, and that was it. So nobody had rights. And so in struggling against this is what made the bourgeoisie so-called revolutionary in Europe, because they fought for things like free speech, and free trade, and all of these other kinds of things. But that was for them.
Yes.
In the process of doing that, they were capturing and killing us. And whoever heard of a slave with the right to free speech, or someone who was colonized with the right, they killed Emmett Till because they said he whistled at a white woman. Yeah. So there was no such thing as free speech. There's no such thing as freedom for the colonized, freedom for the enslaved. But the thing is that they want to act like this is a universal thing that they have applied, that the right to free speech is for everybody. So they can say everybody has the right to free speech, but if that were the case, if it were applied universally, then you wouldn't have prisons filled with African people, Mexican people, other kinds of indigenous people, and you wouldn't have police killing us in the streets on a daily basis, despite the fact there is what they characterize, by de jure, by law, we're supposed to be free. But in fact, what happens in fact is the question that they don't want to deal with. That's why they would say that they said that this case charge is content neutral. It's not what we said. They aren't charging us with what we said. They're charging us because the Russians told us to say that. Even though they use as evidence that we said that the United States was the one who initiated that war in Ukraine. That's killing Ukrainians, killing Russians, and things like that. So they would use the factual evidence of what we said. And on the one hand, but then on the other hand, they would say that it's got nothing to do with what we said. It's the fact that the Russians told us to say it. So that's the conundrum that they have. And they're in this situation where they're fighting against the very ideological foundation of the colonial state that they've created. They created the state. That's not Omali Yeshitela's free speech, First Amendment. That's not the Uhuru III's First Amendment. That's supposed to be the First Amendment for everybody, but they're attacking the free speech rights, the First Amendment. And so they're in this situation where they're cannibalizing themselves, that they're attacking themselves in an attempt to try to destroy us. And that's why we say we're winning. We are winning. The people are winning. And this is a vicious conundrum that they have to deal with. And they cannot get away. So we find that all kinds of peoples are uniting. I mean, I did an interview. He's Tucker Carlson. The 2 or 3 days before they fired him, he'd done 2 shows talking about the attack on us and how that was a violation of free speech. And Tucker Carlson, as you know, has been characterized as a white nationalist, racist, reactionary, and all this kind of stuff. And he did that, and 2 days or 3 days later, they fired him. He had done this before at the Heritage Foundation. We just did an interview with Glenn Greenwald, and in a matter of hours, something like a couple of 100,000 people had viewed and commented positively. Within 5 days, 500,000 people had seen that and united with it. And these are not militants, these are not revolutionaries, these are not, our people. When I say our, in our general revolutionary camp. So this is a question that is disturbing a lot of people, this issue of free speech, because again, it's not my free speech, it's not my First Amendment that they're assaulting, they're assaulting the First Amendment. And when they do that, everybody is fair game as far as they're concerned.
Right. And your house was raided the same week Donald Trump house was raided, and they just keep talking about him. The media doesn't want you or Julian Assange or anyone that has put in the work to have their case out in the open like that. The media is doing this purposely. They're going to keep talking about Trump because I guess it gives them views because nobody watches this shit. So it's I'm so glad you were able to talk to Glenn Greenwald. I'm so glad that you were able to get that exposure out there, because they're going to look so stupid at the end of the day with this whole thing. and I really, really am optimistic and hoping and believing in you and the Uhuru 3 that you guys are going to be free and these charges are going to be dropped, because it's impossible how they can just come at you on these bases with no actual evidence at all whatsoever. At all. But the feds are going to say what they want. Hell, they said that my cousin stole millions of dollars when he only took like a few thousand. So they're going to say say whatever the hell they want.
Yeah. Well, the thing is that to defend ourselves legally, and even with this motion to dismiss the charges, we had to go into court and we had to say we didn't do it. But even if we did it, even if we did what they said we did, it's protected speech. It's free speech. Exactly. You see?
Free speech.
And that's, really important to say that they are crushing down on this whole issue. They're changing the definition of what free speech is, and it has implications, severe, serious implications for everybody. So that's why this is so important, be able to have access to the platform that you're providing us, Brother Jabari.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Chairman Omali. I have another question for you. Wait, let me go back to my notes. Sorry about that. Oh, I already asked. So you guys have appeals coming up.
Well, the appeal is that we can appeal the ruling because what they've done is that when we made the motion for dismissal, the motion was heard in Tampa by a magistrate judge, a federal magistrate judge. And the federal magistrate judge, and they do this from time to time, will hear the case and then will make a recommendation to the judge who will make the final determination. Usually,
Anthony Porcelli?
Yes. And usually when this happens, the judge will go along with what the magistrate has said. We had 14 days or something to appeal that, and we are appealing that. And so it still leaves open a slight possibility that we can influence this. But one of the things that our lawyers understood all the time is that even with the appeal, it was so important for people to read their briefs, first of all, for the calling for the dismissal, because we would just want to put them in a situation where they have to go by the law. And we believe that the more people who see our arguments and even see their arguments, see their charge, see our defense against the charge, calling for the dismissal, see what they've said, we think that's really important, because we believe that even, just common laymen can see how ridiculous it is, what it is that they're saying. And hopefully this can influence them to go by the law. As opposed to how they usually work, how it usually works in the dark and nobody knows what's going on. So we want everybody to see that. We're hoping that people will go to handsoffUhuru, that's UHURU.org, and you can access these briefs that I'm talking about. Read them yourself. So it's not just a matter of believing what we say. And then we're also hoping that people can come to St. Louis. And so that you can see the work that we're doing, which is the material basis for this assault on us as well, because this anti-colonial work, it may be the only real anti-colonial work that's happening in terms of negating colonialism. We've transformed an entire African community here in St. Louis, and we're doing the same thing in other places. So we want you to come to St. Louis, see what's really under attack now, what's really under assault. And the Russians didn't do this. We did this, and we did this with the support with thousands of people. We put a basketball court in one of the most economically depressed sectors of the community. You know how it is in our community, where the young people are playing basketball in the streets, with the bicycle rims, hanging on things and dodging cars. We put $160,000 basketball court. We got the property. We demolished the building that was up there. We put a basketball court. We've created doula programs so that African women can be trained to be doulas to affect the birth capacities for our children and things like that. In a city that has African babies die enough in the first year of life to fill 15 kindergarten classes every year. We're doing this.
Wow.
The government's not doing this.
Right.
But the fact that we do this exposes the government and exposes the inadequacy of the government. And it also shows people that you don't have to wait for the government. There is an alternative. You don't have to wait for the government. You don't have to wait for Biden.
Nope.
Or anything like that. And so, yeah.
No, I love that.
.org.
Yes. Yes. I love that. Because that's exactly what the Black Panthers did. And you notice they copied a lot of programs that the Black Panthers did after COINTELPRO. So it shows.
Yeah.
Like what you're doing, it works. This is the work that should be done.
It works.
You know,
and we didn't wait a single day. I mean, Biden was opposed to, Biden came out against the whole Voting Rights Act, the Civil Rights Act. Biden was opposed to the Civil Rights Act. Biden was opposed even to busing. This is a man who claims to be this great liberal who get on a knee and say Black Lives Matter and all this kind of stuff.
Right.
But he was opposed and practiced to that. So that's the difference in us. And I don't know if he's attacking us based on the politic that he has. That obviously is something that is being challenged by the work that we do. And we're saying that people don't have to wait for Biden, the Democratic Party. We can change our circumstances. We can become a self-governing, self-reliant, self-determining people. And that's what it's all about anyway. And that's how we get to, we say the road to socialism is painted black. And this is the trajectory that we're on to make it happen by undermining the whole capitalist system, by mobilizing the colonized people here and every place else. Also, we say free Leonard Peltier. How ridiculous is it that Leonard Peltier been in prison for almost 50 years on the indigenous people's land? Here's a man who's, the indigenous people are colonized and he's locked up free. We should say, and call on everybody to say for Leonard Peltier, not one more year. Not one more year for Leonard Peltier. Let's get him out of there. That's the politic we have in terms of really negating the whole colonial project that's got the world in this very vicious grip, that's killing Palestinians in this nasty way. And you have the United States and Biden being apologists for that. And you got Biden's organizations attacking us, and Biden and Obama's organization putting an extra $1 million bounty on Assata Shakur, who had to leave this country. You're talking about discord. Yeah, literally. I have to ask you this question because you are still so fired up. You are still going. How are you feeling, and what keeps you going in the midst of all this nonsense? They're trying to throw 15 years at you, comrade. Yeah. And I have to wonder what keeps you going. Well, for them, 15 years would be a life sentence. For me, I mean, I'm 82 years old,
right?
And so to lock me up for 15 years is a determination that I should die in prison. But the thing is, comrade. We got a lot of practice. When I say we, I'm talking about Black folks, and especially we're armed. I think by revolutionary theory, African internationalism. We can see the future, and that helps also. It's like a marathon. A lot of us are sprinters. Africans in this country have been great sprinters, but you see Africans from Kenya and Ethiopia, they're marathon runners because some of us have to be able to see the finish line in order to give our best. We can see the finish line. We know the future belongs to us, belongs to the oppressed peoples of the world. And so we're African internationalists, not Pan-Africanists, because we think Pan-African is the petty bourgeois, phenomenon that was born in the process of attacking Garvey and who had a movement that was based mostly essentially in the working class and things like that. So we are firmly committed. We have firm theory. And that helps a lot. And also, my house has been firebombed. I've been handcuffed in the backseat of police cars and beaten by them. I was in the Uhuru House. They attacked the Uhuru House in St. Petersburg, Florida, the one that they just did in July, on July 29, 2022. 300 strong. They came with helicopters, and in fact, the African community shot down a helicopter in St. Petersburg, Florida, on November 13th of 1996 when they attacked us and what have you. So we've faced all of these things, and I don't want to romanticize this because my wife came under assault, but she is an incredible force. She presides over something like 52 different economic institutions that we've created here and other places. Black Power Blueprint is here in St. Louis, and so it's not the most comfortable situation to be in, where I have to call up somebody once a week and then tell them, this is where now they can come to my house anytime they want to come to my house. I have to get permission to travel. I have to get permission to even travel 15 miles if it's outside of St. Louis to do stuff. So it's not a pleasant situation. It's terribly unpleasant. And so I'm not saying that it's taxing in so many ways. But what I will say, Comrade Jabari, is that I did not get involved in this movement for free speech for me. I did not get in this movement to free Omali Yeshitela, free the Uhuru 3. I got in this movement for the liberation of African people. And ultimately, I came to understand the connection that our liberation has to do with the emancipation of the working class of the world and all the oppressed people. And that has not been accomplished. So how can I quit? I have wanted to quit. I have really wanted to quit. But I made a promise to the people,
Right.
So we have not achieved it. And I could not even sleep at night, with this unfinished job that we, have before us. And there used to be a time I would hear Black people say, well, we might not do it in our lifetime, but, in the next generation now. We say, in my lifetime, I refuse to concede that we will leave this for another generation of our people to have to deal with. So, liberation in my lifetime. I'm 82 years old. So, Jabari, you got to hurry.
I know, right? Oh man, I love it. I agree with you so much, Conrad. And I think the same way. I'm like, no, we can do this now. I have the optimism, and no matter how much you see BRICS, you see what's going on with BRICS. You see the hegemonic hold itself is dead.
Yes.
What South Africa did for the ICJ in the ICJ, that would never been accomplished in 2005 or 2000 or even in the 80s. That we're seeing change now, and that's amazing. And we got to keep on going with that stride.
Yes, indeed. Yes. Yes,
I really appreciate you coming on the podcast, Omali. You are definitely welcome to come on here whenever you want to. This is your podcast if you want it to be.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, comrade. We really appreciate being with you. Yes.
Thank you so much, man. And I don't want to take any more of your time, my brother, because I know that you have a lot to get done. And hell, how many you got so many chapters all around the world, right? Yeah,
we're in South Africa, we're in Namibia, we're in Liberia, we're in Sierra Leone, and some other place in Africa. We're in England, and we're in France, and we have forces who we're connected with in Germany and Brussels and Belgium. We're in the Caribbean. There are forces who are connected to us in Grenada and other places. So yeah, we are continuously building Canada. Every place that is possible, everywhere Africans are. That's what we call an African Socialist International, because about the Communist International that existed in the past. And we feel like it's possible to create an African Socialist International that can, because even with the Communist International, there was very little African involvement in that for the longest period of time. And you had people like Ho Chi Minh and M.N. Roy, who was fighting because of the inability of the Communist International to take on the task of colonized people in the best possible way. We're going to do that. And that's what it's about, comrade. We're going to be free. Yeah.
Uhuru.
Uhuru.
Well, I don't want to take any more of your time, comrade. I want you to have try to have a really good day today. I know it's the evening. I know your day almost over. But bless you for everything that you do. And I definitely stand in solidarity with the Uhuru 3. And I will definitely make sure that I get this out to everybody that don't know. Everybody I know that don't know is going to know now.
Thank you so much, comrade. Thank you so much. Thank you, Uhuru.
Uhuru, brother. And to everybody that is out there listening on the airwaves, have a very good night as well, too. And we'll see you again. Have a really good day. Goodbye, everybody.
All right.
Blank period, yeah. On my black, brown, and indigenous. Gotta holler if you really feeling this. Gotta holler if you really real enough. Other rappers is delirious. Yeah, it's really that serious. Better holler if you really feeling me. I gotta keep it 100, ayy. If you don't like it, then fuck it, ayy. We gonna win in the end, yeah, we gonna live in abundance. I gotta keep it 100, ayy. If you don't like it, then fuck it, ayy. We gonna win in the end, yeah, we gonna. I gotta keep it 100. We gotta stop all the stunting. You know we coming from nothing. Yo, you talking about money, you bluffing. We gotta do something different. We gotta change how we live in. We gotta do better for women. We gotta do better for children. We gotta listen to victims, whether Jewish or Muslim or Christian. It doesn't matter your religion. You gotta stand against the system, or else you just another villain.